There's nothing conspiratorial or suspicious about that at all. Conspiracy after conspiracy after conspiracy, things that actually came true in our own government, things like the Watergate scandal, MK Ultra, Tuskegee syphilis study, Operation Mockingbird, Operation Northwoods, just to name a few. When we have clear proof of weather manipulation, people have been pointing out the trails in the sky, seeding trails for years, and everyone called us crazy about that too. So that's because y'all were not aware of Operation Popeye, Project Controlled Weather Popeye. This was an operation used in Vietnam, which was a military cloud seeding project carried out by the U.S. Air Force. During the Vietnam War, from the year 1967 to 1972, this operation did was basically produce massive amounts of rainfall, weeks, months on end. The inspiration for this work is a guy named Schaefer. Schaefer's work with cloud seeding began during his experiments with a guy named Irving Langmuir during World War II. Our own government has been working on weather manipulation since World War II. And here's my absolute favorite piece of proof on this subject. The Geneva Convention bans weather warfare, verbatim, which is the use of weather modification techniques for the purposes of inducing damage or destruction. But it's all just a conspiracy, right? Y'all really think that Appalachia is getting a little too far-fetched? Okay, how about we stick to facts? We'll leave conspiracy out of it. Let's just stick to what we do know so far on the side of facts. And then you can decide. Let's piece all this together real quick. BlackRock bids and buys the land. During the hours Hurricane Helene makes landfall, civilians who just want to help with search and rescue and volunteering are being threatened with legal action. Spruce Pine, North Carolina, has the purest quartz in the entire world. Our own government is investing hundreds of millions of dollars into companies that are putting up offices in North Carolina to drill out the lithium in the quartz, trying to push people out, sell off their land. No need to rebuild, just do a buyout. People are still missing, the body counts are not adding up, the death toll is not adding up. That their main priority is making sure that they can go after the lithium and quartz. They're just the things that I can actually tell you guys about. I'm gonna say it louder for the people in the back. Hurricanes do not happen in Appalachia. So you tell me, does it seem like a conspiracy? You be the judge.
So, it is all just a conspiracy, but one thing is for certain, that the weather manipulation is happening.
How does one ground in the winter with snow? This is a great one. So what you can do, you can go outside, you get yourself a copper rod, you stick that in the earth, you get a little copper wire, you run that wire from the rod into your home from wherever you put it in the grounding, you know, in your backyard or wherever it may be, and you can just hold that. And you can sit in your house when it's, whatever, -50, if it's -50 by you, and you can ground at any given time. And this is how grounding began. There was a fellow who his first grounding device was actually outside in his backyard, and he would connect the wires into his home, and he would ground his house. And this was 1888 or 1890s, something around that time. And that's when the whole, you know, earthing and grounding first began. He was living in a place where it was a colder temperature, and he thought, how do I do this? So he just put some copper grounding rods into the earth, connected some wires, and he would just hold it. And you could ground at any given time. And this is the coolest part, like the earth is pulsing these beautiful, you know, 7.83 hertz all the time, which are very healing. And you can just pop a rod in, you're good to go. The other option is you can touch a tree. Trees are antennas, like that's what you're touching. It's a gigantic antenna. So you could touch a tree too. That's another option. There are always solutions for whatever temperature or wherever you live. There are always solutions for grounding.
I wear copper rings all the time. So does it mean that I'm grounded all the time?
Let's talk about Denver Airport. There's a chilling theory surrounding that place. No one really knows why it was built in the first place. Denver already had a fully functioning airport downtown, yet they chose to construct this one, spending $2 billion over budget and finishing 2 years late. Strange, right? But what's really unsettling is the 5-story underground facility beneath the airport. Some believe it's a doomsday bunker for the elite. Officials, however, claim it's just an unused baggage system. Still, that doesn't explain the eerie atmosphere. All over the airport, there are disturbing murals, images of destruction, chaos, and even apocalyptic scenes, complete with monstrous figures. Then there's the infamous Blue Horse statue, nicknamed Lucifer. It stands over 30 feet tall with glowing red eyes. Even stranger, the artist who created it tragically died during its construction when a piece of the horse fell on him, killed instantly. Yet, they completed it anyway. And if that wasn't enough, there are rumors of 2 secret runways, supposedly used by the government. Then there's the time capsule, buried in 1994 and set to remain sealed until 2094. Could it hold the key to these bizarre mysteries? Only time will tell.
All of those creepy murals and secret backrooms. What is actually going on there?
For example, is in astrology. Astrology I like very much and studied astrology for a long time. Is known as the planet of love, and it's associated with love and
femininity.
Yes, but first of all, let's look at the word. Okay, so you have V, which is feminine, and then you have Enos. Okay, so what you have there is an amalgamation or a mixture of male and female in one word. Okay, Venus is in fact known as the morning star because it's the star in the morning that's the brightest, right? Who's also known as the morning star?
Lucifer.
Jesus.
That's inverted. Lucifer is known as the morning star.
Serious?
No. Lucifer is known as the morning star. Okay. Yes. How bright are you? There's. I would show you if I could put it up. I would explain it. I would show you it. Yes. So Lucifer is known as the morning star. It's funny because they interchange Jesus and Lucifer so much, and everybody gets it in their head that this is this and this is this. But then that's duality for you. This parasitic consciousness that rules here doesn't care what you buy into. It doesn't care if you buy into this religion, that religion, any religion. As long as you buy into it, and as long as you put everything you've got into it, they're fine with that.
The fact is the debts can't be paid off. And every single politician that comes on the television and says, oh, we've got to make cuts and we've got to do this. And the fact is that it doesn't matter how many cuts we make, we can never pay off the national debt. Or we can't even keep up with the interest on it because it's growing exponentially. And so this is all part of this control mechanism to keep us poor, to keep not enough to go round. When in fact, if it wasn't for the money, we would have complete abundance. So now when debt collectors call, the first thing, well, not that they call me anymore, but if they did call me, I think now the first thing I would do is say, thank you very much for paying off my debt. That's really kind of you. And they say, what do you mean? I said, well, you bought my debt. You might have only paid 10p in the pound for it, but as far as I'm concerned, you've paid off my bank account. Thank you very much. I really appreciate it. So yeah, and the great thing is you can have a laugh with them, because you don't take it. What happened when they first started calling me, I used to get really nervous and my voice would start going all wavy and, my heart would start going and I'd be on the phone to them because I felt really guilty because I felt I'd done something terribly wrong, getting into debt, And then I realised that the whole system is designed to get us into debt.
Well, that's actually true. The whole system is designed to keep us in debt.
The Sahara Desert, one of the most mysterious and least explored places on Earth. With its scorching 125-degree Fahrenheit heat, it's no wonder it's so inhospitable. But here's something most don't know. 4,500 to 5,000 years ago, this desert wasn't a desert at all. It was green, lush, and thriving. This ancient landscape held one of the most extensive river networks ever known, with water flowing through regions now buried beneath endless sand. At its center was Mega Lake Chad, the largest freshwater lake in recorded history. To put it in perspective, North America's Great Lakes cover 94,000 square miles. But Mega Lake Chad, it spanned a colossal 139,000 square miles. Unimaginable. What happened to this vast life-filled region? The answer lies in a profound shift, one that turned a green paradise into the barren Sahara we see today. Beneath the desert surface, traces of that ancient world remain hidden rivers, remnants of civilizations long lost to time. The sands of the Sahara conceal secrets we've barely scratched the surface of. What other mysteries lie waiting just beneath our feet in this forgotten world? Only time will tell.
And it turns out that the basic thing that these evil beings want is to create Satanism. And this is one of the most fascinating things I only learned in 2021 from new briefings, that anywhere these beings go, any planet they go in our galaxy, they're going to create pentagrams, they're going to create ritual magic, they're going to have people wear robes, they're going to have people wearing face masks, burning candles, chanting to this very real artificial intelligence that we think of as Satan. It actually does exist. There is a satanic AI that has become essentially like a soul. It's got its own unique abilities and it can appear as a human being, which apparently it does in a base in Antarctica called Lucifer's Palace. If you go in there, it's very amazing. There's no other building like it on Earth. You really feel that this would be the entity that controls the planet, and this being will consolidate into a human form and appear that way in front of you. So what I'm saying is that your typical Aleister Crowley type of Satanism, where there is, you know, all these things I mentioned, the robes, the candles, the chanting, the masks, pentagram, and of course the sacrifice.
Well, it's not a conspiracy anymore, because it's everywhere. From gaming to movies to Netflix, even in the music world. So it's everywhere. There's no denying that.
Granite in the Great Pyramid comes from more than 500 miles to the south. If you look at the famous King's Chamber, its walls and its roof are all made with gigantic granite blocks.
Stunning detail.
Stunning detail. Those blocks on the roof of the King's Chamber weigh 70 tons each. Now, Egyptologists will tell you that, oh, they could move heavy blocks because they put them on wet sand and they push them along on wet sand. Well, maybe if you're just at ground level, that will do. But when you're 350 feet above the ground, as you are in the King's Chamber, that won't do at all. I don't know how they did it. All I know is they did it. I don't think anybody knows how they did it, how they lifted those stones, how they brought them up to that level. I think we're looking again at a lost technology. And it was this ancient apocalypse 12,800 years ago that wiped that from the human memory banks almost completely, not entirely completely because there were survivors, but removed most of it. Randa will tell you, sea level rise, it creates a powerful high energy zone. Anything that was existing on those flooded coastlines has just been pounded to hell.
So you're telling me 1 year after we find out that they use spies in college football to covertly gather information, both the United States Army and the United States Navy are undefeated for the first time since World War II? Yeah, that's probably a coincidence.
Well, if you haven't been living up under a rock, man, I'm quite sure you heard the information that the Pentagon stated that there's a fleet of crafts heading to this thing that we call Earth. Now, what if, man, these were beings that were coming here to rearrange the order on this doggone planet and to put certain people out of power and to place certain new people into power? But the only way they know who you are is because the way how your DNA vibrates. They can read your doggone energy field. But what if someone convinced us to take a doggone shot that disrupts our signal and they would no longer be able to read who we are, which would render us useless onto them? Because people are wicked. And some people know things that you don't know. I'm just saying. What if?
A spy or an assassin that doesn't know that he is a spy or an assassin is the ultimate spy or an assassin, because he can then be questioned or asked a million times, and because he is not aware that he is that, he becomes the ultimate, he becomes ultimately hidden. So after the Second World War, the scientists had refined the technique of how it should be done. So what they did was, in these amnesiac barriers, they then can place triggers, symbols, colors, hand symbols, sounds, to then access the particular altar that has been created through the trauma. You could theoretically create an assassin or a spy or or an actor or a musician within these and within the altars, and the person who went whilst in the altar would have no idea that they were anything else but that. Didn't in fact begin then. They were doing this 5,000 years ago, and it's detailed in the Egyptian Book of the Dead.
Okay, so let me break it down in simple terms. What he's saying is that they will use techniques on their own spies and soldiers that, in case if they are captured and interrogated, then at subconscious level, they wouldn't even realize that they are spies. And this technique is still used by the top intelligence agencies in the world.
The only person that owns a debt is the person who worries about it. And it's as simple as that. Don't worry about your debt. It's not real. Okay, it's real in the extent you fucking agreed, but it's not. No one's going to die. Nothing bad's going to happen. No one's going to get thrown in debtor's prison because it doesn't exist anymore. The reason why Western capitalism is crumbling is because people are starting to be wise to the fact that it's a big bullshit circus charade run by those in charge to make sure that they stay rich. And it's common knowledge in the BBC, Guardian, New York Times that in the last 5 years of recession, the rich have become fucking much richer and the poor have become poorer. If that's not enough cause for revolution, I don't know what is. But people, the only thing that holds people back with anything is fear.
My advice to deal with debt collectors or to deal with anybody else is get informed. If you understand what you're talking about, you have a much more powerful position than if you don't know. If you don't know what you're talking about, you are at the mercy of people who pretend to know what they're talking about. My advice is get informed, understand your rights, understand their rights, what they can do and what they can't do, and then you're in a much better position to fend off any illegality or anything that goes against what should be done.
If you're pulled up by the police and the police say to you, can I have your name? And you say no, which officially you don't have to give your name. It's actually on the Metropolitan Police site itself. It actually says you don't have to answer their questions. But if you don't answer their questions, they're going to do one of two things. If you get a good copper, they're going to go, okay, not a problem, you haven't really done anything wrong, we'll leave you alone. You get a bad copper, then you're going to get dragged to the floor, roughed about, cuffs on, you'll be dragged down a station where you will be bullied and coerced into giving your name in the end. And if you don't, they will just keep you as long as they possibly can. To lock any human being in a room that they can't leave, and especially in a room that has the very, very bare essentials, is torture.
So remember, if you haven't broken any laws, no one has the right to tell you what to do. We are all equal in the eyes of the law, from the Queen to the police and to you or I. Parliament has no say in common law and is bound by it. So they create Acts of Parliament, and in the US, Acts of Congress. Because government is a creation of man, and a creation of man can never be above man, they need your consent before they have the force of law.
The principle of by consent, if people don't realise, is that we obviously have police because we want them, and that we only have to do what they say if it's reasonable, if we consent to what they're asking to. That is the principle of it for me. Obviously, the larger issue is the assumption that everybody who's walking on this land has given consent to be policed by these people. And that's an assumption that most police officers in this country live by without realising that it's not true. You know, and this is where diplomatic immunity is a good example of where, well, actually the consent isn't given and the police don't have the power to act. Another good example that shows it's all about jurisdiction is that our police have no power at all at the American embassy. But that's on our land, isn't it? And that's another example. Embassies are a good example that shows that jurisdiction is portable. It's not tied to land, it's tied to the party. So I can carry my jurisdiction with me, which is the whole principle of sovereignty in general.